Wonderful. Well, welcome everybody to MAR Talks Art as Therapy with Tina Tam. My name is Carrie Cavers. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am the founder of Moms Against Racism Canada, which is hosting the talk today with the wonderful Tina Tam. We're going to be talking about the transformative power of art as therapy and discovering what art therapy is, how artistic expression can be used to support ourselves in our healing journeys, and how it can be used as a self-care tool to support ourselves, especially during challenging times. For many of us, that might be the upcoming holiday season. And so, just as an advanced warning notice, we're going to be doing art all throughout our session today. So you're going to want to make sure that you have your art supplies with you right now. So that could be, some pens, some paper, it could be computer paper, scrap paper, crayons, whatever medium you want to work with. If you're going to get fancy dancy, you could do paints too, or charcoals, whatever you have, and that there's no experience necessary today. So I'd love to introduce Tina to you. I'm just gonna let these people in. And so Tina is a Canadian-born Chinese daughter of immigrants from South China and Hong Kong. Tina's family's journey in Canada began in Tiohtià, Montreal, and she grew up mostly in Tkaronto, and that's Toronto. And her professional work in finance and human rights education has taken her all over the world. She has spent over 20 years in the social services field, focused on child and family violence prevention, child and youth-friendly community development, and advocacy in child rights, human rights, and anti-racism. And Tina is a mom herself of 2 children and now lives on the west coast of Turtle Island on the unceded traditional territories of the Lekwungen people, known today as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. And she is currently in her final semester of graduate art therapy, woo woo, and has been a practicum student to the Victoria Native Friendship Center, has done some work with us here at MAR and with CIAT Virtual Art Therapy Clinic, Health Justice Society, and UVic Nursing. And she is also working at a BC mental health policy advocacy organization. Oh my goodness, just a total dynamo. We love Tina. So Tina shares that art making has been part of her life since childhood, and art therapy has been so important to her own healing and self-care journey, and that she recognized the need for more access to mental health supports, which I think we can all agree with, for racialized communities, and striving to contribute to decolonizing anti-oppressive, anti-racist, and trauma-informed practices. So thank you so much for joining us, Tina, and for everybody being here today. And a special thank you to our funder, the Government of Canada, who has been funding our MAR Talk series, which allows us to bring members of our greater community the opportunity to explore interesting and intersecting topics of anti-racism, inclusion, and advocacy from the perspective of BIPOC leaders, change makers, and inspiring public figures. So we're grateful for the opportunity to share these talks as a catalyst for deeper education and learning. So Tina, thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited. I love spending time with you. Anytime we get together, in person or in a Zoom room, I love it. And so I just wanted to give you the floor if there was anything else you wanted to add on to introduce yourself, and maybe share a little bit about what inspired you to start art therapy, and then maybe even if you're comfortable, how it like elaborating a little bit on how it's helped you in your own healing process.
Absolutely. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction, Carrie. Welcome, everyone. When Carrie invited me to join the MAR Talks series, I wasn't sure what to expect, and I'm just so happy to see so many people that are joining us that are interested in art or therapy or the combination, or just interested in this topic, because that means a lot in, I think, for our community to really come to a point where we can um, take time, honor the time that we have, and take a moment um, to participate or think about or learn or unlearn things. And this aspect of my own mental health journey has been so significant, and I'm so happy to be able to share some of my story with all of you. So today there'll be a weaving of some of my story. We'll definitely weave some very short art invitations, just so you get a sense. I'm not sure, some of you may already have experience in art therapy or art groups, and some may be completely new to this. So I wanted to just have an opportunity that we can have a conversation, and as things come up, that I can weave some examples so that you can also try, and then we'll also have some ideas at the end for you to take with you and maybe try as we're going into this holiday season. And all of these things are something that you can do with your whole family. I have two children, as Carrie mentioned, so I do a lot of art with my kids, whether they like it or not, but mostly they quite enjoy. One really enjoys it, the other will begrudgingly join us, but in the end, we all have a lot of fun. We just did a whole paper mache lantern last week. So I also just want to say it's super special for me to be here, and I appreciate the invitation. Mar has been part of my life for almost 5 years, and there's so many things this community has brought me: the support, the learning that I needed to do, the unlearning, and really helped inspire me to advocate for anti-racism, advocate for my children, advocate for Chinese people in our community here in the Kwangtung territory. So I just really appreciate that, and it's been really special to be able to be part of the community and bring art to this space. So thank you. Um,
Thank you.
yeah. In terms of answering your question around my journey, I grew up not ever thinking that this would be part of my path. As noted by Carrie in the introduction, I started in finance, and that was what I thought I would do for the rest of my life. And in my community, growing up in Tkaronto, it's very diverse. I grew up in a very Chinese community also, and mental health was never, ever discussed. It was on the side, if someone was seeking mental health support, there was an element of shame that was attached to it. And that's how, that was the type of messaging that I was getting as a young person. Certainly in schools at that time, when I was going to school, there was no supports that I felt like I could access. So that it was just never something that crossed my mind that I would eventually need, or that I could access, and then that I would actually be able to contribute in any meaningful way. So art therapy came to me through my own personal mental health journey, where I'm a caregiver of two young boys that both had medical conditions from when they were born, basically. And when the pandemic started, our family was extremely challenged in a lot of ways that we just didn't prepare for or anticipate. And even leading up to that, we already had so much time that we had to work through so many things as a family, and then the pandemic just added to it. And I remember exactly the moment I was homeschooling. I had the kids at home for 2.5 years, and there was just a moment that I thought I would break, and I knew I needed support. And in the pandemic, it was really challenging to get support. I also felt um, having experiences with different counselors in the past, I really felt like I needed someone that understood me in a way that I didn't need to explain. All of my counselors before were white, and there were a lot of things I spent a lot of time in sessions just explaining about my culture, and I really just couldn't, I didn't have the energy for that. And um, as as everything comes together, I was at that point, and I found on Facebook there was just an ad that popped up, and it was for a caregivers group, and it was art therapy, and it was virtual, and I had never experienced therapy or art therapy or any art workshop as virtual, and I thought, you know what, I'm at this point, I just really need some support. And it was two students from the Kootenai Art Therapy Institute that thought that it would be, a great time to offer a caregivers group. And it was a 10-week group. And for 10 weeks, we came together, and it really changed how I was able to process what was going on. It changed what how I was able to move forward and support my own kids and family through this. And also, I learned to support myself in a way that I never did by using art. And in that journey, as I was working through this process with this wonderful group of women, um, it dawned on me that maybe this is something that I could do, that I can bring together all the elements of my background in human rights education, working with children, working with youth in schools around child abuse. There's so many elements of my life that I've been wanting to add a creative element to, but I couldn't figure out how that could happen. And when I had this experience of art therapy, I realized that this could really be the way that I can continue the work that I was doing in child rights and in policy advocacy, and also just in community support, and also in supporting myself. And so that is how I got started in my art therapy journey. And it has been almost 3 years now of school, and I am at this point, I will be finished all of my requirements and graduating at the end of January.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tina. And so I appreciate the sharing of that journey. And we had a comment in the chat, somebody, Abby, saying that they're going through the same experience. And I think that I know a lot of us can relate in our own ways. Like, I think, when you were saying going through the pandemic and having that moment where you felt you were gonna break. It's like, yes. It's like, and I might still be holding on to that thread. Um, but so I appreciate you sharing in a vulnerable way, because I think, mental health is something that a lot of racialized communities, we have been socialized to be hush hush about. I know, within the Black community, it's essentially like, oh, not airing our family problems, not airing our dirty laundry, that kind of thing, right? Like you keep it within, and
Yes.
how how harmful that is. And so I appreciate you sharing to help break that stigma of that. So then I'm curious about you know, art. I am not an artist. We did the series together and it was really interesting. Well, sorry, I should back up for those who might not know Mar. We worked with Tina just over the summer to do a 9-week art as therapy series, and I was a participant in that, and it was a beautiful experience. So I understand for myself, but can you share with everybody how creativity and art can be used as a tool for processing and for healing?
They have to do.
Oh, we're just gonna make sure everybody's muted. There we go. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Carrie. I love talking about art, so this is definitely a place, as a space and a place that I am happy to contribute to. And I want to honor everyone. I want to honor everyone's experience with art, and that, you know, some people come to art in different ways and experience art in different ways, and that some people have had art as part of their life and some have not. And I've really been fortunate to have, it's been almost 2 years at the Victoria Native Friendship Center, where we work with groups of people. There's elders, there's university students, there's all different people from all over Canada that come to live in our urban Indigenous community. And just being in that space and recognizing how different art is for every single person. And for some people, they never had any opportunity to even have art supplies or anything like that, or, and especially in different communities, I think we can recognize that art and our own cultural art was taken away from us as a result of colonization, residential schools, and all other aspects of control that is put onto art. And I feel, and this is, I feel like we're at a time, and for me and my journey, it took me a long time to get there. As much as I loved art and art was always part of my life, art was very defined in my life. And I don't know if that's the case for a lot of you. I grew up with art class where things had to be absolutely a certain way. We had to do things in this order, or skills. Even in my Chinese painting or my Chinese art that I had the opportunity to do, it was very technical and it was very outcome based. And when I went on to study art, or had to courses in art or art history, all of it was just about colonial Eurocentric perspectives on art. Like, who are the greatest artists of the world? And it always leads to old white men in in, you know, in the galleries in Europe, right? And there is this reverence that we are taught, that is instilled in us, that that is what great art is. And I think it really takes time and intention, but it is an act of resistance that I have learned and that I'm happy to embed into my life, is to shed all of those elements of art that I thought was art, or what I thought represented even good art. And now, as I've been going through this art therapy journey, I realize how much judgment I had put on myself and how other people judge, right? When you go to a gallery, you're almost invited to judge the art, but that is, as opposed to recognizing the process or recognizing what it means to use. So through my art therapy journey, and what I love to incorporate in the art that I facilitate is this gentleness about it. It really is at the heart of it. Every person, it's about self-compassion. It's about connection to each other, whether it's with the therapist or with the art, or with the group that you're in. And it's not about what the end result is. A lot of it is really the process. Like, what was it like for you to start this piece of art? Why did you choose these colors? Like, why, how does this mark, what does this mark mean to you? And it would mean something very different. So in the group that Carrie had mentioned over the summer, we always had art invitations, and then we had an opportunity to share. And we always ask people to act as witnesses, especially when we don't know each other very well. And this is an element that I loved about art therapy, and why it resonated so deeply with me, is that we have that chance to witness and to connect through art, but we don't have to be there to judge it. We don't have to think about, oh, that person's art is not straight, or that person didn't color in the line. It isn't about that at all. It's about connection. There might have been something in Carrie's art that really connected with me. That's about me. And and Carrie has her own experience with it. So I just want to take a moment and invite all of you to just a really short invitation, and this won't involve art, but feel free to, I meant to say, feel free to be doodling or doing art as you're having this talk. I totally welcome that. I think, it kind of adds to the learning and, or, just even the conversational aspect of it. So, but I do want to invite you just to take a moment, and this is part of the shedding our colonial perspectives that have been kind of ingrained in us, and looking at everything through an art lens. So I just want to say, like, it's taken me a long time to get there, but now I just try to take a moment at times, especially when things are overwhelming, just to look around me and see, like, what are the things that are actually a creative expression or art. Like, it could be the food that we cook, or just even I have a box that's in front of me that's designed by someone, and I'm like, wow, I never thought about that actually being an element of art, that someone actually took a lot of time to design this box. So I'm just going to share my screen, and it'll just be like 2 minutes. We will invite all of you. So just get this open so I could share my screen. Throughout, we're going to weave in just a few elements. So just give you 2 minutes. Take a breath, take a moment to look around the space you're in, and really look at what creative and art elements do you see. And if there is anything you haven't noticed before from that lens. We will come back together. And Carrie, I'm just going to put you on the spot just for this one. I just wanted to see if there was anything you noticed in your space that you didn't notice before.
Yeah. So I am in my office, and just behind me, I have this beautiful tall plant. And I was just kind of looking around, and the way that the light is coming in through the window, there's like two little like droplets of um I don't know, it must be plant created. Like I don't know if it would be sap or something, but it's like the light is shining through and it looks almost like a sparkly diamond that's on the
Oh,
plant.
wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for
That's what I'm
sharing
doing.
that. And I love the joy in your face when you're
Yeah.
talking about it. And I want to encourage all of you to, whenever you have a moment, we're in such a busy world and we are in this grind culture where we're just, especially as parents, oh, thank you. And please feel free to share in the chat too. I'd love to see that. Thank you, Brooke. That we're almost trained in a way to not see what's around us, and certainly not from a creative lens. So if there's a way that we can slowly incorporate it, whether it's just a leaf that's fallen on the ground, or something that you're holding, like even a pen, like this marker that I have, like someone designed this color, like there's a very specific color that someone actually took a lot of time to put that together to evoke whatever a sense, whatever they were thinking about. So I just think that there's these little moments of creativity and art that can be very inspiring in our process. And I also wanted to, and thank you, Carrie, for your example, because that just works so well into what I was hoping we can just take a few moments also to actually do an art invitation. So one of the things that I think is extremely special about having art as part of your mental health journey is that I've learned along the way that art can evoke certain feelings. Like just, I've learned along the way, your autonomic nervous system, even in a heightened sensation, if it sees something, just say your art, or you create some art while you're in that state, it actually can't tell the difference if it's real or not. So we're going to try something just again, a really quick exercise. So when you are, and this is hopefully just to encourage you to think about it, and maybe you've had this experience in your life before, or sometimes you might come across a piece of art and you're just like, wow, that just made me feel like I was there in the moment, or there's some kind of sensation that you have. So I'm just going to share my screen again. Oh, just up here. Okay. I'm going to invite you to do an exercise to draw your calm place. So if you'll join me to take a few deep breaths, however you're comfortable, just to act as a grounding. And then when you are ready, to take a couple minutes to draw your calm place, or a thing that makes you feel calm. give you a minute more, and please feel free to continue working on this as we talk, but I just wanted to use this as an example. And if you are done whatever you've created, just take a moment to look at the art. Just take a moment and notice what happens. Is there some sensation in your body? Does something shift? Just notice. And if it does, if nothing happens, that is okay too. You know, it may not be the right time and space, but it's just an exercise just to give you a sense of what the art can hold for you, or what the art can do to support you. I'll invite all of you back to join us.
This is
Carrie,
always
I
the
see a
hardest
nice,
part.
I know. And this, when we're actually doing a full time together, where we're actually doing artist therapy or art therapy, there's much more time that we allot to art. But for the purposes of this talk, I just wanted to give you some examples and some experiential. For me, I just drew a quick heart, and looking at it, I just immediately, it just makes me think of self-care for myself. And I noticed that my body relaxed. And I, you know, along the way in this journey, like sometimes I do, I just make images of places I want to be. And it really, in my mind, I'm like, it transports me there just for that moment. And this is something we've done with our kids, and that's been really helpful. I think the kids in like my kids are both in elementary and middle school, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in the classrooms. There's a lot of exposure to different things that they're processing. They're processing so much. And sometimes it's just, you know, coming home, taking a moment and just having a quick moment to maybe put something on paper and just bring us to that spot. So there's so many ways that as you know, just kind of try different things that you can incorporate into your daily life or your family's daily life, that, you know, I encourage you to just try. I think a lot of, you know, for some kids and adults, it may resonate, and it might not. Like for one of my sons, it's Lego. Like, let's go to the Lego. And that is a form of art too, right? So, and that, I think, will close the answer to that long question.
Fantastic, thank you. And it, you know, at the beginning of your answer, I was reflecting on what you were sharing and just my own personal experience and how I said, you know, I'm not an artist. My experience of that, and I actually, like, I'll share, not anything to do with Tina's facilitation or the art imitation during the series, but like I was noticing a lot of frustration in myself going through the series and working through that because I felt really confined. And you know, I remember going through school and being so frustrated with art class, and uh, and I remember thinking to myself, like, who who said that you could judge how good my art is?
Yes.
And and then that socialization, that feeling of like, I'm not doing this perfect, I'm not performing, and then that translation into adult life of having to commodify this, right? So under that system of capitalism, it only has value if you can sell it.
Yes.
And you know, unlearning all of that. And then there was one thing that you said, and I wish I could remember what it was, but it shifted something for me about art, and like in connection to that commodification, is that it's a relationship, right? And so much of our world under capitalism and patriarchy and white supremacy has made things transactional. What can I get out of this? Whereas if we can see art and the making of art and the interacting with, oh, it was the judging, it was the going and judging someone else's art, that, it's that, how is the piece of impacting me, like, and me impacting the piece and that relationship, and how is that going to, like, how am I absorbing this, that it's then going to have an impact on how I go out in the world too, that relationship piece. So I just wanted to share already that how you are shifting my thoughts and the connections that I'm making. And so something else that you mentioned too, just about your kids coming home and the heaviness of, everything that they're going through. And I think for us as adults too, and our access to so much more news and what's going on, it can be really weighing, right? And that a lot of us are keeping up with the genocide that is happening in Palestine. And it's something that, a lot of mental health professionals working with kids and adults, using art as a method to process that trauma and that grief. And it made me think of how art can be a way of communicating when we don't have the tools to verbally process, right? And what you were saying is like, oh,
Absolutely.
I should do that with my kids. Like, just they come home and there's paper out for them, and it's like, okay, like, let's draw it out. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, how art therapy can support, in particular, racialized communities that have faced so much systemic trauma, and how that creativity can be used as a method of communicating and processing trauma.
Absolutely. And I so appreciate this question because it is something that I have been exploring since I started my art therapy studies. Art therapy in itself is still a very white, Western, Eurocentric, dominant field. I think all of mental health in North America is structured that way. So a lot of learning is structured that way, and the rules and regulations and the systemic policies and practices are through that lens. And so the last 3 years, I have really been approaching my art therapy studies wanting to see everything from a different perspective, recognizing that that is the system that it is right now, and also bridging, okay, where can the changes happen? How can I as a student, and how can I as an advocate, especially a human rights advocate, and how can I, as I'm moving into a professional practice, how can I influence change? How can I bring community together and support the community that really I think is most meaningful to me? As I said, when I had therapy with white counselors, it was challenging because we didn't speak the same language. We didn't have that same background or understanding. I don't need to have someone that's Chinese that has lived my life. But I do feel there is a connection that's really important in understanding sort of these elements. Like, we live with systemic oppression constantly. We have families that have experiences. These are generational things. And so in terms of supporting racialized communities, there's so much that can be done, and so much intention I'm seeing, there's a shift of intention there, but there's still that systemic piece that needs to change. And with that, I think what I appreciate about art therapy, or just having art there to hold and support you, is that it breaks down a lot of those barriers. Like, this is, the art is for you, the art is for us. It's empowering us. Even if you are going through an art therapy process, it is not like a traditional therapy relationship where, you know, I'm there to analyze or give you advice or all that. What we do, as I did with the art invitations, is give you choices and some prompts, and work with you to come up with your own process and what you see through your own art. It's not what I see through the art or what anybody else sees through their art or your experience. So in terms of having to connect all of those pieces that we live with as racialized people every day, and how art and art therapy can support, one really bright light that I love about art therapy is there's actually a whole arm and approach of art therapy called social action art therapy. And I feel like what we do here, what we're doing with Mar even today, this is part of it, is like that it is about bringing people together and processing and reflecting whatever is happening to us and to the world, and through art generating a voice together, whether it is sharing the art or just part of the process, and in some cases also leading to action, and knowing that it's a process. It's not like, well, okay, we're just all going to come together and change this to policy, but that, you know, we honor ourselves and our experience so we can go through a journey, reflect and process. And then if there is an opportunity, or if it feels like that's where you want to be, then there's an opportunity to come together and use art as a way of expression. And Carrie, you had mentioned that there are so many things that we experience in life that we cannot put words to. And that was my challenge in regular talk therapy, was that I couldn't, you know, there's so many things I couldn't express verbally. And if I expressed it verbally, I felt like it was bringing up things the way I didn't want it to bring up, or that it was subject to misinterpretation. Whereas with art, whether you're working with a therapist or not, the art is there to give voice to what you need it to, or not, but to hold it for you. And I think that whole process is a release in itself. So I find myself, when I'm at times, you know, with everything that is going on, there's a lot of things going on in my brain that I just need to have someone or something hold it, whether it's in that moment or just in that, you know, or forever. And a lot of times I just grab a piece of paper and some markers or whatever's available, and quickly do some emotional release art, you know, and it could be anything. Like, it's not a masterpiece, it's nothing. And with that, maybe since we're there anyways, I thought maybe we can just take another moment to try something like this. So this art invitation is called scribble art. So this is something where it is accessible to almost anyone in any form, like whether you're doing it digitally on the computer, or on a piece of paper, or on any medium that you like. This is also something for doing with the kids is really fun, that you can get some emotional release, or just release of the tension of the day through a scribble together. And so what I will do is I'll share my screen again, just to bring up the invitation. Oh, let's go here. So scribble art. So what I'll invite you to do is just slowly scribble a continuous line or multiple lines. If you feel like you need to do it quickly, please do that. This was just meant to also encourage slow art at times if you feel like you need to slow things down. But if you're feeling like you need a release that requires fast art, that is also part of this invitation. And once you do a scribble, it doesn't need to be elaborate or anything. I invite you to just have a moment to look at the scribble. What do you see in the scribble? Are there any images or thoughts that appear in your scribble? And if they do, and there might not be, but if they do, highlight the images or write down the thoughts. So for this purposes, for our MAR talk, we'll just take like a minute to do this, but this is something that I invite you to take time to do. If you want to, again, do it with your whole family, you can get a huge piece of paper and do a big scribble art together. And my kids really love finding little images within the art. And it doesn't have to be deep or meaningful. It could just be fun. Like you see a squirrel or you see a balloon. So I'll just give you a minute to do that. Just bring everyone back. If you're mid scribble or mid finding your images again, please continue if you feel like it. I'll just show you an example that I have right here. Scribble. I think I did work on some of this with my kids too. And we found like an orca and a squirrel or something like that, or an octopus. So it's something fun, and it's also just a release. Release in that if you want to do it slowly, or even try to use your non-dominant hand to do it. So these are just invitations where you can make it your own and see how it works for you, but something very simple. And again, no judgment, no need to be perfect, no skill, that like art skill that's required.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tina. And so very selfishly, with like the holiday season coming, do you have something that I can take away, that we can take away, that we can do that might help us cope over the holidays?
Absolutely. And leading up, I have been trying to put my tools in the toolbox. So I am so happy to share with all of you, and as caregivers, and whether it's children or other adults that we care for, or just for ourselves, there's so many ways that we can do it, and also to make it fun. I just put together a few ideas that I'll just quickly walk you through, and just to share. Um, Again, make it your own, and whatever resonates with you, take it with you. If it does not resonate with you, then just leave it. So here are some art invitations to try. So it's kind of built on this. The first one is to draw or create what you need today. And this is kind of built on that same idea that when we drew our calm place or calm thing. Sometimes just drawing what you need today. Or if you are a writer, this is so great too. Like art in any form, or if it comes in of movement, a dance movement or music. I've worked with so many different people that, you know, express it in different ways. So, but sometimes just putting it out there, like what you need today, again, it can hold it for you and it can support you and maybe create that intention for you. Another thing is to make some response art. So when things might get a bit challenging or you're feeling the tension in your body or in your mind, just, you know, it can be a quick process, or you set aside an hour or 2 hours and just have a chance to release what's going on and let it hold it for you. My supervisor at the Friendship Center, she's this amazing art therapist, and there's times where she can recognize that people are having a really challenging time, and then she just goes to them and says, is there anything you want to leave with me here at the center? We'll put it in this jar, and it's like an imaginary jar. We'll put it in this jar, we'll take care of it. You could come back to it, or you can leave it here forever. And just that kind of invitation, just that thought. And I think about, I do this with my children now too. Sometimes their minds just keep churning on something and they can't let it go. And sometimes just having someone say, I will hold that for you. It's not going to affect me because I'm not going to take it in myself, but I'm going to hold that for you. We'll put it in this jar, take care of it, or in this box, and we'll just set it aside. And there's something really powerful in being able to do that. Oh, sorry, I just going back to this. The third one, this can be challenging, but I really want to challenge you on this if you can, to write a letter of appreciation for yourself. Imagine, think about, you know, I'm sure in a lot of people's heads, like whether you do it or not, you know, something happens, like somebody did something for you and you're already writing your letter of your email of appreciation or your text. But we don't always take the time to do that for ourselves. So imagine, you know, what would someone, you know, that's close to you, you know, say about you, you know, and we deserve to honor ourselves too, and especially if we're dealing with complicated family issues or family things, get-togethers. Sometimes just taking a moment to write a letter or in any form, or draw a piece of art in appreciation of ourselves, that is a form of self-care and self-compassion. The fourth one is to make a self-care collage and keep it with you in a place where you can see it. So just these elements of self-care, just to have it there visually, can really be a wonderful strength and support. And then the last one that I will suggest just for this purpose is to make a shield. And this came from an elder who's an incredible art therapist from the East Coast. And I learned this from her, and her name is Fiery Jean. And she had, in a workshop that I took with her, she had encouraged us and to do this with our kids. And I did this with my kids, and it was really powerful. To make a shield, and I mean shield in a way, you know, however you mean it. It could be a bubble. It could be, I made a nice little round, soft shield, but you know, to focus on what gives you strength. And when you are in those moments, and I said this with our kids when we worked together on this shield, I said there will be many things that come up at school that will challenge you, and you know, that is a part of life. But think about the shield. Think about what you bring, what your strengths are, and what you can do for yourself in those moments. And it's very powerful to just have something visual, or just even that sensation. It can bring you back to that sensation. So I will stop there, but those are some suggestions that I wanted to share with all of you to hopefully give you some ideas and inspiration to help you get through these holidays.
Thank you so much, Tina. I really, really appreciated this last hour. And I feel like this is how it went in the series too. Like the time that we spent together just it goes so fast. Um, and to that note, I'm really excited to share that coming in January based on just the wonderful impact that Tina had on our Mar family over the summer, that we're going to be working together again to offer art as therapy as another 8-week series this time. So being able to get together once a week and set aside time to do art together per Tina's wonderful invitationals to help us, reflect and process doing that together. So that's starting in January. And then we also have something new where we wanted to make it so that even more people could join us in doing art as resistance together, and meeting and setting aside that time to do art once a month in an art circle. Did you want to tell any more about either of those things, Tina?
No, I think you covered it. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to host the offering of every month, that will, to just have an open art circle and for you to come in as you are and bring whatever art you want to work on. I will have an art invitation for everyone. But again, this is just, we wanted to have a space where we could just take a pause, just a pause, and do some art on Saturdays together, and just to be a support to each other. So I'm really looking forward to having a year-long process that we can do that.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm so looking forward to doing it again too. And I'm just going to put the link in the chat for everybody where you can register for that if you want to join us and do some more of this wonderful process. And so we'll wrap up today and just say thank you so much, Tina, for joining us. We'll have a few minutes for questions. Tina, are you okay to stay for an extra few minutes?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to honor everybody's time. So for anybody who does have to go, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate that, and hope that this time together gave you a little bit of calm and groundedness, and some tools that you can take with you over the next couple of weeks. So thank you so much. And now we will get into some questions. So I did see, feel free to put your question in the chat or raise your virtual hand if you have a question. We did have one come in a little bit earlier. It said, do you find you need to address the trauma many people are left with after traversing, or I guess experiencing, going through the education system?
Oh, Rebecca, when I saw that question, I so appreciate it. Our family has been on a journey with the education system. I feel, there's so there's so much I want to say about this. Yes. I wish, we could be more intentional about supporting the adults in the system, whether they are the educators or the administrators or the parents, caregivers, any adult that is involved in the community of education. I feel like there has been so many harmful experiences that have happened, and everyone has either experienced it or witnessed it and not had any way of coming together to process it or any way of healing from it. And what I felt like, I'm still deep in it, in my journey, is that there's never seems to be a time that we could pause and really honor that, because I feel like we just dealt with one thing and then the next thing goes. So, I think that is such a important area, and especially also for the kids, like not to separate that. And also as family, I'm very much about, I think, the adults definitely need support in order I would hope that, there could be empowerment of the adults then to support their own families, right? Like it doesn't always have to be external people that come in that don't really know what's going on to support your kids, or the kids in your life. But, I think there's many ways to do this, and with all of that's going on in the education system, I really, I certainly want to put the intention out there, and if there's ever any interest, I am happy to explore that, because I personally would love to really process and heal from some of that. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, I think from one of the things that I think is really important when we're talking about the education system or a lot of our systems is that two things can be true at one time. And oftentimes there tends to be this kind of reaction or defensiveness because there's a lot of people who are working in these systems who are trying to do good, right? And
Absolutely.
so when we're saying that the system is harmful, we're not with it's with it, and we
Yes.
recognize that people are doing good. And I think if we look at how the intent of the education system when it was originally designed, it was designed, primarily under capitalism to make workers, right? And so it's designed to force conformity and assimilation. And so by its nature as a system, it is traumatic. It is traumatic for kiddos who are neurodivergent, who are, non-conforming. It's traumatic for anybody who doesn't fit that very specific mold. And so for racialized kids, for families who are just, coming immigrants who are coming in, interacting with the education system, for parents, like in my opinion, most people who go through any kind of formal education walk away with some kind of trauma that needs healing. So yes, the answer is one big yes, in my opinion. Do we need that healing? Okay, so we have a couple of hands up. Cindy, you're first, and then to Abby.
Hi, thank you so much for just the wonderful session. I'm an artist myself, so I do know a lot of the advantages that come with healing through art, which is the way that I got into art in the first place. I just wanted to ask if you guys have any advice for someone who's looking into the career path of art therapy. Not necessarily yeah, like for me it's like such a wonderful opportunity to be able to share this like knowledge of what art can do with other people. So, and also like on top of that, not just the academic side of things, but also in a more practical sense, if you have any advice or tips of how we can do that in like a more community-centered place. I live in Montreal and I work with students sometimes for different events that we do. So this could be like an amazing addition to that as well. So yes.
Oh, that's so wonderful, Cindy, and it's wonderful to hear that you're an artist and that you are working in community. I think there's so much, like there's certainly the formal programs. Concordia has a really great master's in art therapy that is an extension of their fine arts, and that's very unique because in all the other programs that are out there, you don't need to have an art background, you don't need to be an artist, but there is obviously a magic that comes, everybody brings some of their own magic to it. So if you have that art skill and that art love, to be able to bring it out there, I think there's so many ways to learn the practical side of art therapy. I don't think it has to all be about psychotherapy. Like my diploma is a psychotherapy diploma at the graduate level. So it requires all these requirements, and you have to have psychology and science, but there are sometimes extension workshops and learning that if you are already in a field of a certain area, like if you're in a helping field or an artist or things, I would just suggest exploring. I also think in the US, there's a lot of opportunity. Now that everything is virtual, when I first started, there were very few opportunities virtually to learn about art therapy. But over the last 3 years, I've noticed more and more opportunities come up. And in the US, like I just connect with the American Art Therapy Association. There's a Canadian Art Therapy Association too, and they offer a lot of different workshops and opportunities, and you can kind of enter in a way that works for you. There is that traditional colonial aspect of it, but I do think that there's a lot of really great resources out there that you can connect with without having to go through a formal learning process if that doesn't work for you.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much.
I think if I can add on to just based on our conversations, Tina, about like doing this in community, I think from what I understand, it's a little bit of a trial and error, and just like finding any kind of community that, you know, some are gonna resonate with you and you're gonna feel that you click with, and others you might not. And so continuing to explore that and knowing that, you know, one particular way doesn't have to be the way, or like maybe you have to create your own way and find your people and bring them to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your question. And Abby, your question.
Hi. Thank you for the session. It's very, for me, I guess, also coming from a Cantonese background and seeing someone that is in the field where I want to go into, it's I'm a bit speechless now in a good way. I also had similar questions about like how like art therapy as a practitioner, I feel like in the broad sense right now, there's a lot of people calling themselves like life coaches and that sort of things. If for someone that doesn't have a psychology background, can like I researched that there are some programs in Vancouver that do like a 3-year program or like a comprehensive program that you can do art therapy. Would you still call yourself the art therapist behind of that, or?
So this gets into a systemic conversation, and I have two views on it. So just in the practical where we are right now in the system that we are working with, technically, and it is a little bit different in each province, but I'll just speak to Canada and BC. Technically, there's no overall registry like doctors, right? So there's anybody technically could call themselves an art therapist. It is obviously not advised. There is a Canadian Art Therapy Association that like once I graduate, like the moment I graduate, I will register with them as a professional art therapist, and there's like 2 levels. So in order to get to professional art therapist, you have a certain amount of education. They have accredited programs, and this is the same in the US too, in the American Art Therapy Association. There's definitely more regulations in the States. I think they're way more advanced in that movement for art therapy, and we're working on it in Canada. But there's if you go to the Canadian Art Therapy Association, they will have, and it sounds like you've already looked at programs, so you probably have gone there already, where they will have certain regulations. Like I've had to have like 700 hours of clinical hours in order to get to this point. And then if I want to become a registered art therapist, there's X amount of hours that I need to reach, and I have to have supervision and all these things. So it more is a protection of practice. And I encourage anybody that's interested in art therapy also to just do your research and homework with the art therapist that you want to work with. And I'm not saying that being registered is the end all be all, because this is a part that I'm also advocating at the systemic level, is that it can also be very limiting. And I think there's some people that would be amazing as art therapists, but because of barriers, systemic barriers, they don't get that opportunity. And I think that there needs to be a middle ground for that. So, again, it is about connection. It's about relationship. I think there's a lot of ways to enter into art, and why we also in some aspects call it art as therapy. Like if you're facilitating a workshop, my younger son had a teacher in grade 1 that is an artist. So she did art every day with them, and she focused on it being the process. She's not an art therapist, but that just made all the difference. Like that in itself is magic. So.
Wow. Yeah, because I guess like I also come from, the black sheep of the family, where isn't, I guess, like practical in that sort of sense, and and also
Understood.
activists outside the home. I've done my work of being burnt out and like that sort of thing. That's why for myself, like I want to shift into like the wellness, holistic being type form of, I guess, in that way of like, how war always have the people that go to it and also the helpers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was also wondering, do you also do any like workshops in Cantonese or Chinese by any chance?
That is a good question. I do not. I'm definitely fully comfortable in conversational Cantonese and everything, but I'm not at a level where I feel like I would be able to facilitate something in the way that I want to facilitate. But that having been said, so I'm at the Canadian International Institute of Art Therapy, and we do have a group of Mandarin speaking students that are offering like Mandarin open studios and everything. So there are other people out there that certainly can do that, but I am not there myself.
I guess I'll
Maybe
just
with kids. I don't think I can do it at the kid level.
yeah. I guess I'll just put myself out there if you're hoping, I guess not hoping, but like if you're looking for someone to collaborate, like I'm definitely willing
Thank
to.
you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I do think this is a collaborative process. I personally don't always like to I don't like to work alone in this, in that, if it's a group, then I feel the group, like I'm part of the group, right? And when we're doing, different things, I think art is in itself can be such a collaborative, especially at the community level. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abby, for your questions. I don't see any more questions in the chat and more hands up, so we will say goodbye for today, but hopefully we will see you all in January, either at our weekly series or our monthly series. So thank you again, Tina, for spending your morning with us. Really appreciate that. And we will talk to everybody again soon.
Thank you so much.